Hello everyone, this is Zooc, and today I'm bringing you a new cooking video, or better said baking video. This one is going to be cinnamon buns. I decided to bake these guys when I moved into my new apartment in Prague as a celebration of some kind, because there's just something about filling a house up with the smell of cinnamon buns. It's just irresistible. So yeah, they turned out quite well, and I wanted to share the recipe with you people. So we're going to start off with about 100 grams of butter mixed with shortening. 100 grams is roughly 3 ounces. Doesn't need to be absolutely precise, but I'm using basically about 60 grams of butter and about 40 grams of butter flavored shortening, because Czechs have some pretty good shortening here, and that behaves differently than butter, which contains a bit of water and not pure fat, while shortening is pure fat. To that I'm going to add about 100 grams of sugar. And I did 80 grams of regular sugar and 20 grams of vanilla sugar. You can skip that if you are in America and don't really have access to vanilla sugar. You can use vanilla essence with 100 grams of regular sugar. After that, I'm going to cream the butter and sugar. And then to that, I'm going to add the zest of a lemon. Those graters from Microplane, by the way, if you're looking for new graters, they're excellent. They mostly do graters in the end. They have some even for feet, fuck's sake. And also the zest of an entire orange. These do a great job at just giving the cakes another layer of flavor, and it's kind of blandish without them. I would really recommend not skipping that. I basically add this stuff to kind of every baked good I make. It's just universally valid. And to that I'm going to add 3 egg yolks, one at a time. Save the egg whites. You can make like an egg white omelet out of it, or just do whatever, make some meringues out of it. I never throw away egg whites. There's always a use for them. So put the egg yolks in one at a time and mix it thoroughly until they're incorporated. Obviously, the butter and shortening need to be room temperature for this to work. You can pop them in the microwave for a few seconds at a time until they soften up. And once the 3 egg yolks are added, I'm going to do a mixture of yogurt and milk. Now you can use pure buttermilk. That's fine, but I didn't have it here. But yogurt and milk is basically the same thing in the end. So in a 1 cup measurement, I'm going to add half yogurt and half milk. And that needs to be warmed up a bit because the eggs were cold, the butter and shortening were still cold. And you want to kickstart that yeast activity. And with that, you need to have a bit of a warmer environment. So I warmed that up. Don't boil it, by the way. Just warm it up to whatever you think is warm. Nothing past 120 degrees or so. And I add that a little bit at a time and incorporate it until it's incorporated. Yeah, didn't see that one coming. But you shouldn't add the whole thing, the whole mixture at a time, because it'll get curdled up, and it really doesn't matter in the end. But I just preferred it to look smoother. That's just personal preference. You can dump it in there if you want. To that whole thing, I'm going to add about 3 teaspoons of yeast. It's a bit much for this amount of flour that I'm going to add, but I found that it works perfectly fine, and I don't need to reduce the amount of yeast. They puff up nicely. And obviously a pinch of salt, because no sweet baked good would be good without... I need to stop repeating these fucking words all the time. No baked sweet. There we go. Would be good without a bit of salt. So that's the wet part, basically. You're done. That was the hardest part of it. Now I'm going to add flour, and I can't, unfortunately, tell you how much I add because I just eyeball it. It just works every time. I'm at a point where I don't need to measure all my stuff, at least. The flour, as I've said in previous videos, it differs greatly from place to place, how much flour you need or what kind of flour you're using. This flour that I'm using is just some Tesco discount bullshit. And it has about 12 grams of protein, which would qualify it as bread flour, I guess. But it works better with all-purpose one, the one which has fewer protein. So I start off with a whisk, incorporating the flour a bit at a time until it becomes a bit too solid and too dense for a whisk, after which I switch to a spatula. And the purpose of this is to eventually get to the kneading part. So I just add a bit of flour at a time until the dough starts sticking, not starts sticking, but starts coming away from the walls of the bowl. After which, when it's a solid mass, I just dump it on the table, and it's time for kneading, which is all the physical labor you're going to do for this recipe. Now, this dough is very similar to the one I use for the the filled buns in a previous video, the filled check buns. And it's really an all-purpose dough. Like, I never need to switch from it because it's perfect for every application of a sweet yeasted bread-like product. It's kind of an ideal formula I've found. So with the kneading, I've already explained it in previous videos, but you do what I do there. Like, you push with the heel of your palm, and on the way up, you pull the dough with your fingers and fold it onto itself, and just add a bit of flour at a time until it gets to the point where it doesn't stick to the table anymore, and it's just a bit tacky when you touch it. After about 10 minutes of kneading, grab a clean bowl, spray it with a bit of vegetable oil, no olive oil or anything crazy, or you can use butter as well, whatever, and dump your dough in there and put it in a warm place. Now, since I am in a new apartment, the oven is I'm still not used to it yet. It's a bit strange the way it works. Like, it seems like it overheats. But I would recommend putting the dough now in an oven that's set to, if it goes under 50 degrees Celsius, set it to about 30 or 40, and leave it in there for about an hour and a bit. When the hour is up, it's supposed to look like this, basically doubled in volume. So pull it out. It's going to be a bit sticky. But because of the oil that you sprayed in the bowl, you don't need to use extra flour. The idea is not to add any more flour into the dough because it has all it needs now. So the oil should do a pretty good job. Now with a rolling pin, you need to roll this out to roughly a rectangle shape. This is going to take a bit of time, but in the end, with a dough scraper that I have there on the right side, this becomes a very easy job because you can straighten the edges, or even with the rolling pin as I'm doing there, and just roll it onto itself. So you get some very clean, straight edges. There's no fuss involved. I've always had problems with like getting the shapes right when I watch video recipes of other people making them, but I think I'm at a pretty good point right now. So after it's rolled out to a rectangle, I have no idea how big this is, but just eyeball it. Like, if the dough needs to be about 1/2 centimeter thin, that's about 1/4 of an inch thin, and smear some butter on it. I guess the best way to do it is by hand. If you don't have I don't have a special spatula for that. I don't want to break the dough, so the hand works, but you can also use melted butter. And then I sprinkled a fuck ton of black sugar on it. I'm using some light brown sugar from Marks and Spencer, I believe. Yeah, that's where I got it from. It's kind of difficult finding American-style brown sugar in the Czech Republic. They seem to think that Demerara sugar is brown sugar. And Demerara sugar is this shit you put in your tea and it doesn't stick at all. Like, it has no molasses in it. It's just slightly unrefined white sugar. So, yeah. On top of that, I'm going to sprinkle about a tablespoon of cinnamon powder. Now, you could mix it with the sugar, but I didn't because I forgot. And also, I came up with a logic explanation as to why my brain decided to forget that. It's because the brown sugar is very clumpy. So you get a more even layer if you actually sprinkle the cinnamon on top of it afterwards. Now, I'm a big fan of raisins and walnuts, so I always add those to my cinnamon buns, but you can obviously skip them if you don't like raisins, although I have no idea why you would, because raisins are fucking amazing. And I have to apologize for my voice right now. It sounds like I'm just, like I have throat cancer. I don't know what's going on. For the past 2 or 3 days, I've had this really coarse, rough voice, and I can't even speak silently without it sounding like I'm dying. So once you sprinkled all your bullshit on top, just start rolling it with the long edge, of course. I also press down the top edge with my thumb to make it a bit thinner. Now avoid putting butter on that or anything else. That needs to be clean because it needs to stick to the roll. So I'm just using my bench scraper to aid in unsticking that dough from the table. It did stick a bit when I rolled it out. And now I'm gonna grab a measuring tape. Yeah, I know, it's fucking crazy. But first I'm pushing the ends together so they're somewhat uniform and straight. As you can see there, it's kind of wonky on the side. But it seems pretty okay now. So what I do is butter a 9x13 baking dish. You can use metal or glass, it does not matter here. Or even I would actually recommend maybe a slightly bigger one in this case because they seem to be a bit constricted in there in the center. But what you're aiming for is 12 cinnamon buns. I think for a pan like this, 9 would be a better choice because they have more room to expand. So just divide it in two, and then divide those in two, and each of the small segments in 3 pieces. And you're gonna get something that looks completely unappetizing and not very interesting. But these need to go obviously through a second rise. That's mostly the case with all bread-like products. The first rise is for the dough to do its thing, and the second rise is comes after the shaping part, and it's quite essential. Which reminds me that my aunt recently baked something, and she just decided to skip the second rise because she was pressed for time, and they came out pretty horrible. You really shouldn't do that. Baking is a process that takes a lot of time, but that's the easy part about it, that you don't have to actively do much with it. You just let it sit. So put some foil on top of them and put it in the same warm oven that you used before for the first rise. And once 30 to 45 minutes pass, they should look something like this. So pop these babies in a 175 Celsius or 350 Fahrenheit oven for about, well, mine took 20 minutes, but yours might take a bit more. As I said, I think this oven is overheating hardcore. Just aim for golden brown and bubbly from the brown sugar, and be careful not to overburn them. I guess 25 minutes should do, but I have no idea what kind of oven you have. Like mine is an electric convection. I didn't even use the convection mode on it, but I swear they were done in 20 minutes, and back home they're never done that fast. So I guess the best way is to not even tell you how long it's supposed to take, but just look at them, and if they're golden brown and they're not white around the edges anymore, then they should be basically done. Also, if you do have an internal thermometer, the temperature should be at least 180, but nothing over 200. So yeah, that's gonna be it. I've been extremely busy the past week or so after moving into this new place. We had to buy all the shit for it. Like, when you buy a new place, you have to equip it with all the... I got to buy a washing machine, fucking cleaning supplies, all sorts of stuff. I've lost track of how much stuff I've had to go and sort and move around and buy. So yeah, it's in a habitable state right now, and it's actually pretty awesome. But yeah, I haven't had time to even do any work on top of all this going on. So this video is I'm slipping it in at about 6 a.m. now. I just got up 20 minutes ago because I'm going to bed at like 9:30 nowadays because of how tired I am. I also started going to the gym while being on somewhat of a diet here. So I'm trying to do a complete overhaul of my life and become healthier and more fit and do all the stuff that I could not do until now. But yeah, once things settle down, I'll have time to do some drawings again. I know people have been asking for those. And also more time to cook some healthy foods, because these cinnamon buns were a one-off thing. We're not actually eating bad stuff most of the time. This was just a celebratory bake-off, I guess. So yeah, that's about it. I'm just waiting for things to normalize so I can get some work done and finish some projects that I had laying around, and yeah. But it's nice living that adult life and having those responsibilities still. It's just time is an issue. I wish the day had like 40 hours. That would be awesome. But yeah, anyway, thanks for watching. Please do try this recipe. It's really awesome. And I hope you enjoyed it. Rate that shit, of course, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.